Hello, welcome to Walk in the Park. My name is Tony Ingram, and this show is on July 15th, middle of July 2015, episode 109. And you can see all of my episodes at walkinpark.com, Walk in the Park, walkin.com, my video blog. And today we're going to go to waterfalls and woods. So we'll start off in the woods with some water, but not waterfalls, with one of my very short videos that I put online, but only just in my show here. Otherwise, a glimpse of nature. Let's go take a look. So I go for walking in the woods most every day, and sometimes I take some pictures and video and such, and so I turn them into glimpses of nature and to try to set the mood here today. Now we're going to go to the big waterfall, Taughannock Falls, but a view that none of us have seen before because it was a nighttime time exposure. This is a 4-minute exposure here. Let me get the information here from the photographer. His name is Josh Snow. Josh Snow. For 4-minute exposure, 4-minute exposure of Taughannock Falls in the dark of night. I have many more ideas for similar images of the falls. Enjoy and be sure to visit my page. Let's see, he has a web page here. Well, I'll get to it in a minute. This is his website here. If you want to look at it and see more of his pictures at Josh Snow or jsnowphotography.com. But here's a zoom in of that picture. Isn't that something? Isn't that beautiful? The glow of the whatever the ambient light at night, perhaps starlight even, or twilight on the waterfall. It's just really beautiful. So Josh Snow Photography does that and other things. He'll put some of his other work up on the show as well. Okay, so now let's see where we're going to go next. Oh, we're going to stay at Taughannock Falls. But this time, about a week ago, actually the 10th of July, it had rained the night before and the falls were really flowing perfectly. So I walked up to the falls and took some video and put it together in one of my park minutes. So let's go take a look at the park minute of Taughannock Falls. With recent heavy rains, Taughannock Creek has spread all the way across its broad limestone bed, and the Great Falls has reached its full breadth as well. So we've had more rain, so Taughannock, I'm sure, is flowing. All of our waterfalls are flowing. Some of them are really roaring after heavy rains, and then it'll settle down a little bit, maybe a day after or 2 days after. The water will even clarify. Good for waterfall viewing, but not great for things like farming. So I know the farmers have been having a hard time getting into the fields. So a lot of extreme weather in the world these days, and scientists say that this is what to expect when we get more with climate change. So flash floods, droughts, all kinds of things, more energy in the atmosphere, more disruption, more change. But let's enjoy the beauty while we can. So now we're going to go take a look at some woods. We've been to some waterfalls. Now we'll go to some woods. So let's take a look at this map looking down at Ithaca, the south end of Cayuga Lake, and you can see the sign that says Buttermilk Falls State Park. Let's zoom down below that. Buttermilk Falls, you can see that in there. And look just below it, there's that purple lavender pin there. This is indicates Kingsbury Woods Conservation Area. So let's go a little closer. Down below Buttermilk Falls in Danby, up on South Hill, Jersey Hill Road, and so forth, is this Finger Lakes Land Trust Preserve called Kingsbury Woods. And then we'll look at their trail map. This is actually the map of the preserve, showing along Jersey Hill Road. And it's kind of an odd-shaped preserve. Look at that, the main chunk below, and then a corridor up to the road, and then some on the other side of the road. So interesting piece of landscape there. So now we'll go down on the ground and take a look at what it actually looks like. So here's the entrance to the preserve right off of Jersey Hill Road. There's a little parking spot there for about 4 cars, and on the other side of the road is the conservation area with a trail. You take a little trail in there, and you might have noticed that the little white dotted line in this picture shows the trail. So the trail is actually about 1.1 miles long. I didn't have enough time to do the entire thing, but I went in a good ways and had a good time. So you get a short distance in, and there is one of their wonderful information kiosks, which some of them have some very elaborate exhibits, professional exhibits, and this one has a lot of information, but they don't have the exhibit materials up, and there's a sign-in box. See who's there and what their comments might be. And this preserve is in the headwaters of Liq Brook. Now, some of you may know Liq Brook is a place where there are some big waterfalls just on the edge of the Cayuga Inlet Valley, and that also is a land trust preserve and some Cornell Plantations lands. And the Finger Lakes Trail goes through there. But this is up in the headwaters. It's actually about 4 or 5 different preserves that are associated with Liq Brook, so it's a pretty rich area. The trail goes through the woods and goes along the boundary as you saw earlier. Let's take a look at that map again. Shows that thin corridor going in for the trail, for the access to the main body of the preserve on the south side of Jersey Hill Road, southeast side, and it's along Liq Brook. And here's a sign. It says, "Nature Preserve ends here. Please respect our neighbors' lands and privacy by staying within the boundary of the preserve. Thank you. Finger Lakes Land Trust, Ithaca, New York." So, so it's very important to maintain good relations with the neighbors of preserves, land trust preserves, other preserves, and also particularly on trails like the Finger Lakes Trail, which much of which is on private land with the permission of the landowner. So we have to be very respectful of the landowner's privacy rights, property, safety, so forth. So let's continue along through the woods, and it's a nice trail through the woods. There's a variety of woods in the trails, on the variety of woods along the trail, I'm trying to say. But they had some pictures at the kiosk there that showed some damage that happened a few years ago. See if I can find the caption for this picture here. Here we go. Here's the caption from the Finger Lakes Land Trust. On April 28th, 2011, a tornado touched down in Danby, New York. And some of you may remember that tornado. I do, because I don't live very far from there, creating a corridor of damage on many properties. The Land Trust Kingsbury Woods Conservation Area was pretty severely affected. The preserve is temporarily closed. Well, it's been reopened by now. That was 4 years ago. But here is some of that tornado damage. We usually don't think of this area as having tornadoes, but there's more and more in New York now, and I think that might again be a symptom of the times. And look at these trees knocked down. Let's see. Let's knock this back up to this picture. Tornado winds are powerful force. We're interested to learn about how this disturbance will change forest habitat for birds and other wildlife. So opening up the forest canopy like that will allow other plants to grow that were otherwise suppressed by the shade, and it'll change the ecosystem a little bit. Here's this caption. Clearing and getting the trail reopened will take many hours of chainsaw work, which I guess has been done. Trees in Liq Brook. So the brook itself had a lot of trees on it. And finally, the trail is under there somewhere. But they cleared that up, and of course, this is not the area that was hit by the tornado. But there's still plenty of nice woods in there, and there were some big old oaks and such, which I didn't happen to find. Let's sort of read a little bit more about the preserve that they're telling us about here. Let's see. Whoops.
Siri not available.
Sorry, I have an iPad here, and I hit the wrong button. Downstream from Kingsbury Woods, Liq Brook carves a spectacular gorge on its way to the Cayuga Inlet below. Here, however, the headwater stream cross gently through old fields that are gradually reverting to hardwood forest. In the southern section of the woods stand several giant old oaks. So it's about 48 acres, I think, there they have. So it's a nice little place. I found this big white ash tree with roots I thought was really cool along the trail. And I went up, and I like to hike in for ways and then sit down for a while and take some pictures and just reflect and enjoy the place here. So I made another little glimpse of nature here with some ambient sounds, which I will share with you. In this spot here, which is actually part of Liq Brook. There's not much water in it, which is surprising considering how much rain we've had, but this is just up in the headwaters, so not much water there. But let's see what we can get in terms of a video here coming up about. Okay, we'll bring it right up here. All right. So just some ambient sound, some bird calls and so forth. It's really quiet out there. What you did not hear was the buzzing of the mosquitoes that were all around me. So they were getting, with all this water, there's plenty of mosquito breeding habitat. So the woods are getting buggy now. So wear some bug dope, hopefully something that isn't poisonous to you. I looked down in the stream and I found some flat stones that had interesting marks on them. These are, I think these are the forms of, or casts of worm tracks in ancient mud on the bottom of the sea, because all of our rock is made up of sea bottom sediments from hundreds of millions of years ago, back in the Devonian period they call it. And sometimes where different sediments join, you get the preservation of the forms of what this was actually probably a layer of rock that was turned over from its original position, and this would have been a sandstone or siltstone, harder preservation of perhaps mud below it, some shaly, clayey mud below it that had these tracks in it. So that was pretty neat. You find a lot of things like that in streams. The streams seem to open up a lot of rocks that have fossils in them, or at least forms like that. Not a lot of fossils in most rocks around here, but in some places there are, and stream beds are often places to find things like that. So we're going to go to another place in the county. This one, we were just in the woods. We're going to go back to a waterfall, a different waterfall this time. There's Cayuga Lake and Ithaca, and then look up in Lansing. the east shore of the lake, and we'll zoom down. And what we're looking at there below the center is a point of land sticking out on the eastern side of Cayuga Lake. That is Myers Point, Myers Park, Town of Lansing Park. And the dark area leading up from that is a gorge and valley of Salmon Creek. And Salmon Creek is one of the larger tributaries of Cayuga Lake. It is about 1/8 of the water that comes into Cayuga Lake from its tributaries comes in by Salmon Creek. So it's significant. Let's zoom down. Now, if you look, we'll zoom down to the area. Well, let's go back to here. If you go up to the sort of upper right, not too far upper right of the picture there, and then we'll zoom down to here into the hamlet of Ludlowville, which is a little milling town from a couple of hundred years ago that centered around Salmon Creek. And just to the right of center, you see this white area. That is the top of Ludlowville Falls, which is a lovely waterfall that pours over a layer of limestone called the Tully Limestone, which also forms the bottom of Taughannock Gorge, by the way. That flat bottom of Taughannock Gorge we saw is made of the same kind of rock, actually the same formation, just appearing on the east side of the lake here and on the west side of the lake at Taughannock. And there's more to say about that, but maybe some other time we'll get into the details of the Tully Limestone. It's pretty interesting. You get to right down in the village there, you see Mill Street, and then a street coming up from the bottom to Mill Street. Right to the left of the word mill, just up to the left of there, you see a little grassy area. That's this park, the Ludlowville Falls Park, and there's a couple of historic markers there. Look at that. First Log Tavern, Ludlow Inn, 1795. It says First Log Tavern, 1792. Log Grist Mill, 1795. Now, I was told once by a former town historian for Town of Lansing, I believe, that Ludlowville at one time in its early days was actually bigger than Ithaca for all the mills that were along Salmon Creek. But then Ithaca grew, and then when people cut all the trees down in the watershed of Salmon Creek, the water flow became so unreliable that the milling kind of just disappeared because they just couldn't have enough water and when they needed it. So there's also this glacial boulders, a glacial erratic they call it, probably carried here by the glaciers from Canada or the Adirondacks, and there's a plaque on it which is honoring the local men who served in World War II, who died in World War II from Ludlowville, Lansing area. In the back you can see a little bandshell type gazebo, and beyond that is the waterfall over Salmon Creek. And there's a lot of water on it, and you can see there's a rainbow this day, so that is pretty neat. So let's take a look at that waterfall in action. So we'll go right to that. So the waterfalls are looking great. So take a little drive up over to Ludlowville in Lansing. That's a nice little area. So so we've been to the woods and we've been to the waterfalls. And the woods were a nice day, and the waterfalls we saw them on nice days. But a lot of our days have been rainy. So let's go to the woods on a rainy day. This was, I don't know, yesterday maybe. It was yesterday, the day before. We're going to go to Buttermilk Glen, Buttermilk Falls State Park, and watch it rain a little bit. maybe you got caught in yesterday's downpour. There's a little rain shelter along the trail there, which I actually aimed for when I went out in the woods. It had my umbrella, and hung out there with a family from North Carolina while it was raining, and then I eventually walked away after I took my pictures and walked home under the umbrella. So we're watching Walk in the Park here now, walkinpark.com to see all my shows. But now we're going to go to some canyons, canyon country. We've been looking at our gorges, but we're going to get bigger now. We're going to go to canyons. Ha! Wow. Well, that's the Grand Canyon. That's the big daddy, at least in the United States, of canyons, of gorges, Grand Canyon National Park. But did you know that there are some 36 Grand Canyons across America, across at least shown here in the contiguous 48 states? Maybe they've got a Grand Canyon in Hawaii and another one in Alaska, probably do. But anyway, here's 36 states with Grand Canyons. Now, some of them aren't so grand compared to the Grand Canyon. Well, many of them. But each of these states have a Grand Canyon. There is a Grand Canyon of New York. That's the Genesee River Gorge in Letchworth State Park. This year, voted by a USA Today poll as the country's most favorite state park. But we'll do a feature on that someday. So let's go up in New England. We actually looked at, in Maine, we looked at a gorge up there. But now we're going to go to New Hampshire, the Grand Canyon of New Hampshire, the Great Gulf in the White Mountains, the White Mountain National Forest. Now, I've been there, but not recently. So let's go take a look. There it is. There is the Great Gulf of New Hampshire, of the White Mountains of New Hampshire. Now, this is in the Presidential Range, the highest mountains in New England, and they range from 5,000 to 6,000 feet above sea level, and they're quite heavily glaciated. I'm going to read you a little bit about this. This is the view from Mount Washington north into the Great Gulf Wilderness, which, the Great Gulf is a glacial cirque, or amphitheater-like valley head formed from a glacier by erosion, located in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. The cirque's walls are formed from south to north by mountainsides of Mount Washington, which we're standing on, which is 6,288 feet above sea level. And then from pretty much left to right in the picture here in the extreme left is Mount Clay, which is 5,533, Mount Jefferson, 5,716, Mount Adams, straight back there. Mount Adams, I think, is the one straight in the back. And the farthest back and to the right is Mount Madison, which is 5,366 feet. So they're all above a mile high. Okay, and it's drained by the west branch of the Peabody River down in there. So let's keep looking at this. We'll get some other views. Here's a map showing the Great Gulf Wilderness. I think it's about 5,000 acres, and showing the outline of it. And you can see in the middle there is the Great Gulf, it says, and there's the west branch of the Peabody River, I said? Yeah. Mount Washington in the bottom, and then arcing around Jefferson, Adams, Madison, and also Mount Clay's in there as well. So it's a spectacular place, pretty unusual for the east. This is looking down Great Gulf from Mount Washington down to Spaulding Lake or Spaulding Pond. Let me get the information here. Actually, let's see anything else to say about that map. At 5,552 acres. Okay, this is a view from Gulf Side Trail, looking down at the Great Gulf Wilderness on the north side of Mount Washington. Spaulding Lake can be seen at the bottom of the basin. Okay, so the first time I was there, I was in high school, and we hiked in there, my father and my brother and I, and then we hiked straight up towards to where this picture was taken from, right up to the top of Mount Washington. And then I think my mother met us at the top, and because you can drive up the carriage road. This is looking back probably from Mount Jefferson to the to Mount Washington. So that's the head wall that you climb up there. It's about 2,000 feet. So pretty interesting place. I was there, camped down in that valley. Oh my gosh, I think it must have been in 1986 with my brother, and then we hiked up there, and then we went over all of those. What did we do? We went up Mount Jefferson. You can see that on the left there. That's the bigger one on the left. Mount Jefferson, over 5,700 feet high. And we climbed up there from the bottom of the Great Gulf, and it was a high wind up there, I remember. And then we walked back to Mount Washington, right up to where this picture was taken. So, and then I know I was there in college, and I climbed over all these mountains in one day, did some incredible 20-mile marathon through the mountains, and that was fun. Okay, so that's pretty much what we got today, except for this parting shot here. This is in Zion National Park in Utah. Photo by Tom Morris, and he has a website called sharetheexperience.org. sharetheexperience.org. So a beautiful picture from the west of another canyon country. This is not one of the Grand Canyons, but I don't know what the Grand Canyon of Utah is. Let's see if they have one. Well, maybe. We'll see. Let's see, in Arizona, and just above Arizona, it looks like it might be Utah. We'll see. Eventually, we'll try to cover all 36 of the Grand Canyons of the United States. So that's about all I have for you today. And once again, walk in the park, walkinpark.com, and look forward to seeing you again soon. So let's just have this picture here. We'll leave it at that and go to our final goodbye here.